Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. With me today, I have 3 graduates from the full stack JavaScript Techdegree program. I think I said that correctly. From Team Treehouse. A lot of you know that I'm a big fan of Team Treehouse. It was a big part of me becoming a developer. And I think I spent like a year and a half with it before I decided to go to a coding boot camp. But yeah, I brought on 3 graduates to give you an honest review. And like usual, we're going to go ahead and start off with the intros. Welcome back, Aaron. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. This is awesome.
Yeah, people liked you last time. I got a lot of good feedback. And it's funny because it makes such a huge difference when someone brings on like this positive energy and you're just funny. Like your laughter is contagious. People will see it. They'll see it. But anyways, if you wouldn't mind, can you share like your previous industry that you came from? And then, previous industry, what you're doing now if you're looking for a job, because people might not have seen the old video. If you're looking for a job or you have a job as a developer, and then when you graduated the full stack program.
Sure. So currently, I am employed. I work at Change Healthcare. So doing some pretty cool stuff there. I've been there for almost a year, which is crazy. Really, really crazy. Before that, I was in the customer service industry. So I did everything from being in a call center to being in the SaaS industry space. And I was a customer service representative all the way up to a manager. So I've done kind of a mix of that stuff. And Treehouse was phenomenal. I graduated Treehouse in June of 2019. Around June of 2019. And haven't looked back since. It was really awesome.
Cool. Thank you. How about you, Byron?
Hey, my name is Byron. I was already working in the tech industry as a developer, but I had taken Treehouse classes before, and I knew that they had a tech degree program. So last year I decided to, I had some downtime and I decided to check it out. And because the cost was quite reasonable compared to like other courses you can do in tech, I decided, it might be a good idea to take it. And I figured it would take me about 3 months to get through it because I already had a lot of experience as a developer. So I scheduled 3 months for myself. I finished it back in October of last year. And yeah, it was a pretty good experience. Even coming as a developer into it, it was challenging, but I was able to learn quite a bit.
Okay, sounds good. I just spaced it. Remind me again when you graduated.
October of last year.
October of last year. Okay, thank you. Cool. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, my name is Megan O'Brien, and I have a non-traditional tech background. I used to work with animals most of my life, but I committed to my tech career in 2015, and I worked in support, customer success, high-level enterprise implementations, and I took the boot camp and I graduated in fateful March 2020. Bad time to be doing anything, and yeah, the experience was great overall for me.
Perfect. Okay. Quick, I got to remember, a lot of people that watch this video, they might not have seen my previous videos. So for me, I actually quit my full-time job with only like 3 months of savings. And I used to be an aquatics director. And before that, I had a psychology degree. So I have a really non-traditional background as well. And then it took me way more than 3 months to get a job as a developer, way longer. But I used Team Treehouse for like a year and a half, just their normal standard. I think it's like, it used to be $25 a month. And then I went to coding boot camp, then I got a position, and then I was a developer at 3 different companies. Really, for the most part, most of my career focusing on the front end, and then slowly kind of moved into a full stack role. And then I quit to start my own company helping developers. So that's where I am now. All right. Let's get started. I'm excited to hear this. I love talking about Team Treehouse. Every time I do one of these videos, I get excited. So let's start with, you know what? I actually don't think I asked this in my previous video. Okay. Full disclosure, I'm going to wing this entirely. I didn't plan any of this. But was it hard to get into the program? Did they screen people out or test you before you got in?
No,
Okay.
not that I remember. It was mostly, I just remember going to the website. I took some courses before on Treehouse for the $25 a month. And just to kind of get my feet wet. I did see the tech degree, but at the time I was like, I want to get a little taste and kind of see what kind of courses they offer first. I don't want to kind of just jump in with both feet because, my previous story, I tried to do that before and I got burned. So it's like, I'm not going to get burned this time. Let's see what they actually got to offer. And I really love the content. So I did go to the tech degree for a little bit more money. But yeah, there was no test or anything like that I know of that I needed to pass to get in.
Did everyone or anyone do any like group projects where it would be helpful to have your skill levels be very in sync?
We were supposed to, but because of the program we were in didn't end the way it expected, we didn't actually get to the group project. But I worked closely with the group of people going through the tech degree with me.
Okay. Didn't end the way it was supposed to. What do you mean by that?
So the diversity inclusion program we were in was supposed to end with an apprenticeship, but because COVID was about to happen, that company we were supposed to have an apprenticeship with pulled out. So we were supposed to, after we finished the tech degree, we were supposed to do a joint project where we would troubleshoot an existing application together and do a couple of enhancements, but we never got to do that part of it.
Okay. It's a shame. Sounds like it would have been good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. So I also had an interview process as part of it, but just for the record, I don't think that they're doing this program anymore. But they really helped you along through it, but you had to complete the first part of the tech degree. You had to do that, and then we had to have a video interview, and we had to fill out like a questionnaire. But it wasn't to like, it was just to get a sense of how serious you were about it. It wasn't to like see your skill level.
Oh, interesting. So that apprenticeship would have been taken a lot of different skill levels.
Yep. Everybody in the group was very varying in skill level.
Yeah, that's hard to do. Okay. So let's dive into the curriculum. Like, let's dive into the program. What do you think of it?
I think for me, one of the biggest things that kind of stood out to me was the way that the instructors that they have. So the instructors, I give a few names like Gil, Treasure, the instructors they have. It feels like you kind of know them. It's really weird. Like I know I've talked to other people who have been to boot camps and. Some have said, oh, my teacher's kind of really cold and distant. And some say, I love my teacher, they're very hands-on. But even though you don't have like a in-person instructor with Treehouse, the way the teachers that they get are so just lively and really kind of walk you through things, and the way that they shoot their videos, it kind of feels like you're right there with them, and especially if you're following along coding with them, like you feel like this person. Like I know Gil, I know Treasure, like I connected with them on LinkedIn, like I feel like I know them, like I follow them on Twitter, like and it feels like you're kind of immersed into this thing, and the information that they give you is like spot on accurate. And they try to update their videos as quickly as possible. Like if there's something that's inaccurate or something that needs to be updated, they try to do it pretty quickly so that you get at least the most up-to-date, accurate information that you would see in a job. So if you would go to a job, you'd get the most up-to-date, technologies and tools that you'd be working with.
Okay. And
Definitely.
To your point with the videos, I know who Gil is. if it's the same teacher who's been teaching for like 5 years. But I remember watching one of his videos. I was thinking like, this background is so cheesy. I don't know if I'm going to like it. And then he started teaching, and then the background grew on me. And then I looked forward to watching the videos, but that was my initial experience with it.
I think sometimes they're definitely cheesy, but if anything, that eventually adds to the quality. The production value is great. And I love their, what do you call it when they like display something on the screen? They make up these little cartoons. A lot of those really helped me because they would just break it down into basic things.
Yeah, those animations that they do, I don't even know if there's like a specific word for it. They're good. I mean, I thought about like trying to do tutorial videos like that. And I think that one of the main reasons I didn't was because like I would be competing with videos like that. I'm like, I know nothing about video editing. I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I know what you're talking about though.
But just when going back to Aaron's point about feeling immersed and like connected to the teachers, I also feel like the Slack channel that they give you access to is a huge part of that, because if you're stuck, you can't talk to the teacher, but you can jump into the Slack channel and get help from your peers and the staff that are monitoring the Slack channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I second that. I think the Slack channel was a big upgrade because the first time I tried to learn how to code, I took some Udemy courses. And I think I mentioned this on the podcast when I was here before. Like, I bombed like really hard, like so bad. I was trying to build an app, and after like 3 or 4 months of doing Udemy courses, I was like, "What is a loop? Like, how do I loop through something? Like, what is this?" And I realized I don't know anything. Like, after 3 months, I don't actually know anything. So being able to have a resource like the Slack channel, I think, is worth the money that you're paying. I mean, to have people that are like-minded, they want to see you succeed. And then when you get to a certain point, I think we'll probably touch on this later, you actually do peer reviews. So you review other people's code, right? And that is a crucial skill that you need. I can't tell you like how many times at my first job, I already knew how to review someone's code because of Treehouse. Like, already know how to do it. And it's like, they're walking me through, so this is how you look at it and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, and this is here and this is there. They're like, oh, you know this already? Yeah, like, this is the stuff we did at Treehouse. Like, I mean, I think the way they have it set up, is just phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you could really tell, too, who was going to make it to the end of the tech degree by how involved they were in peer reviews and just helping each other out on Slack. Because the more that you troubleshoot your code, other people's code, the more you're going to learn.
I like it. What was your experience like, Byron?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing them talk about Slack and peer reviews. I was trying to do it on my own because I had a very short amount of time that I had to kind of finish it. So I didn't use either of those, but if I didn't have any prior programming experience, it would definitely be very helpful. And I did end up using Slack when I was a bit unsure of the projects later on. Like the directions were a bit unclear. And so, I reached out to the students and the staff on Slack, and they were pretty quick to respond with, like the students responded with what they thought the directions were. And then obviously the staff were like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. So yeah, those were very useful as well.
The worst thing that can happen, obviously, is this isn't the worst thing, but the worst thing that can happen is when you finally found an issue that's really similar to yours that you've been searching on Google for. It's on Stack Overflow. They know exactly the problem that you're going through, and then you see like no answers. I hate when that happens. And so one of the good things about Team Treehouse is that never happened. Even outside of the tech degree, I remember just seeing there was like you could participate and help other people and answer questions. You got points for it. They really know how to gamify the program for sure. But there were no like unanswered questions. It's like people had this obsession with like making sure there were no unanswered questions. Maybe they liked the points. I don't know like what got everyone to answer, but that's one thing I noticed and liked about Team Treehouse. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I really think it's when you do jump into the Slack community, they cultivate that culture. They really encourage people to participate. A lot of people are scared or don't want to like give somebody the wrong piece of advice. But they like teach you how to do it. They send reminders. They like call out people, and they have like a kudos channel where you can like if somebody gave you a really good review. So it like really encourages people. And then they do have, like you're saying, the points in the forum. If you help somebody, it goes into your addictive Treehouse profile where you're like, ha ha ha, I have all these points now.
Yeah. Yeah, it may be, I mean, I don't recommend people do this, but it made me want to like put that on my resume, like how many points I had and everything. My resume used to look way different than it does now. So let's dive into it. I have some questions, and I think some of these questions come also from the last videos. I learned more about Team Treehouse. But before I do, what did you think about the actually, let me ask this question differently. Do you feel like you were prepared for a full stack JavaScript position when you did graduate? Or do you feel like some supplementation would have been required? And Byron, I would actually toss your previous experience out before that to answer this question.
So I'll start. No, but I felt like I had a really good foundation. And they encourage you to, imposter syndrome was definitely in play. They encourage you to just apply because you're going to learn on the job. So I got through a couple of different interviews and actual pieces of code I had to write for those interviews, which I was amazed by, but I didn't feel super prepared. But I felt like I had a really good base of what JavaScript was, of what coding was, I knew how to get the answer, basically.
Okay.
I think this is a tough one. So if I'm going just based on Treehouse, I would probably have to say no. So my confidence level came from having mentors, and that's kind of what I did. So going through the program was great. And it kind of gave me a good foundation, but there was a lot of questions that I didn't even know that I needed to ask that you don't know, even chatting through with other people. And I think that is a little bit of a drawback when it comes to having the Slack channel. You really need like really experienced people in there. And I think that's what they're trying to do is like, I think they've reached out to me a couple times. I think Megan, they've reached out to you. I'm not sure, Brian, if they reached out to you, but to kind of have us like stay in there and even come in and talk to the group that may be graduating, right, for different things, because you really need like people that have been through it and they understand and they can kind of be like a little mini mentor, because that's what you really need. If you're in there with people that are all on the same kind of wavelength and everyone's all brand new, there are things that you don't know, and there are things that you don't even think you need to know that you need to know. And those things I learned from mentors, people that had been in the field, got jobs, people that were currently working. The company that I was at working at the time, Salesloft, they had awesome mentors for me. I could reach out for any kind of questions that I had. And they were like, oh yeah, by the way, you need to know this. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that, right? Like who would have told me that? Nobody. So I think that is probably the thing that is really hard to encapsulate to get right for any kind of program, right? Whether it's a boot camp or online program, it's just to have people that can serve as that knowledge gap, because you're gonna have a knowledge gap. There will be things that you don't even know, questions that you have that you need to ask that you would not even know that you need to ask. Okay, that makes sense.
It does. So right now what you're doing is you're definitely buttering them up. So I'm going to ask you a different question. Do you feel like no tech program, like no educational program, can prepare you to be job ready? Do you feel like every program you have to supplement or you're not going to be ready?
So I would say this. no matter where you are, you're going to have to probably supplement. I don't know. I mean, I've talked to other people from boot camps and things like that. I don't know of any place that you can go to, even if you go to college or whatever, where you're not learning on your own something, right? There's no gap at all. I don't know of any complete 100% gap-free teaching out there, right? Things move way too fast. Jobs have so many different requirements. There are questions out there that you don't even know that you need to ask. I don't think that there's a one size fits all, one stop shop. If I go here, by the end of this thing, I'm going to be job ready, right? No matter what, like I'm going to have a job walking out of here. Now there could be services that particular boot camp provides to take you and pull you the rest of the way. Right? But you're not kind of doing that on your own. They're taking you and pulling you and putting you in this position, right? Treehouse doesn't really have that, at least not from my experience, right? So they don't have something where they take you and put you in something. I've heard of the apprenticeship program, which they kind of help you with that. But in my experience, I didn't have that. So I had to figure out a way to fill that gap. So unless a boot camp or, learning on your own, you have something like that can fill that gap. That's where that gap is going to lie. So anybody can kind of teach you the knowledge. You can teach yourself the knowledge. You can go on YouTube, but there's that 1/4 or 1/8 sliver of piece that you need, that when you jump into those interviews, they're going to ask you those questions, or you're going to need to know these pieces of information that you just don't have.
And so I can already tell this is going to be a fun interview, because you definitely strike me as a person that's always going to reword things in a very positive manner. And the way you describe Team Treehouse, I know that about you. So this is why I'm going to challenge this a bit more. I do feel like, so I reviewed a lot of coding boot camps, and you're right. Like a lot of coding boot camps they might have that last bit of the program that kind of pulls you the rest of the way and tells you some industry secrets or like weird caveats you didn't think of, like after you get done with the material. But that's part of the coding boot camp. I would argue that there are coding boot camps that can deliver that job readiness, and it sounds like Team Treehouse does not, without the apprenticeship program. Now, that's not, kind of to your point, that's not a bad thing. And I know Team Treehouse are really good at teaching beginner concepts. They're really good at giving you like a solid foundation. And would it be fair to say that that's what Team Treehouse provides, is that foundation? It's not, start to job ready. It's like just a really solid foundation.
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, it's a really strong foundation. It gives you a foundation. Are you going to be like, this person that goes out there and just like gets all the jobs? No. I mean, no, you're not. Unless you're gonna have to supplement with stuff. You just have to, right? There's stuff that you just won't know, unfortunately. So
yeah, and I've had coding boot camps where one I even recently brought on a new camp CEO, where we talked about supplementation might be necessary for a lot of people. But I still talk about his coding boot camp in a positive light, because he doesn't try to hide that. Like he was able to cut a lot of costs and deliver like the experience he delivers with just a little extra supplementation. People are pretty much good to go. So I definitely don't think that's a bad thing at all. But Byron, I want to hear about your opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Aaron and Megan. I don't think it fully prepares you to be job ready. I think one of the main problems that I saw in the program was it teaches you a lot of ideas and technologies and concepts in a way that they're compartmentalized, but it doesn't really tie in everything together. So an example is like the very final project. You learn how to do a React front-end application and then a Node.js back-end application. But it doesn't teach you how you would actually deploy both of those to work in a real-world example, which is, it's very important for like a job environment to know how you would actually do that if you're going to get hired. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, I think group experience or group project work is very important, which I did not get to participate in. when I took it. I didn't know about the apprenticeship program as well. So I think that's also definitely lacking, because without any kind of team experience, you would definitely, be on the lower scale as opposed to other candidates when you were applying for a job.
Okay. I think that's completely fair. So let's talk about the peer reviews. Does anyone want to chime in for that?
Yeah. Or Megan, you want to go first?
I was just gonna do you have a specific question about the peer reviews? Do you want us to say how they work?
Nah, it's an open-ended question.
Okay.
What was your experience? What do you think of the peer review? Well, do I want to ask a specific question? Yeah, maybe I do. Okay, so if I had to come up with 2 questions, because that was really open-ended, I would say the peer review. So I'm actually, here's what I'm going to do. Like I said, I'm winging this and I'm going to change my thoughts as I go. Previously, in the other video, I had heard that the peer reviews were the people who actually reviewed your code were a few levels up, and you wouldn't be able to review someone else's code until you hit a certain marker. Is that true?
Yes, but it's only after project 3. So after project 3, if you pass it, you can peer review other people's project 3. So you don't have to be an upper level. You have to pass that project basically to review that project.
Do you feel like you've ever gotten a review that you didn't agree with, where you felt like maybe they didn't really understand the code as well as they thought they did?
So yes, but I will caveat that with, they make it very, very clear about the project pass and fails. So I think it's hard for somebody to fail you incorrectly, but a lot of people I found were wanting more feedback. And sometimes I wanted more feedback, and sometimes other coders and not the staff would just be like, great, you passed, bye. They wouldn't dive into a lot of different feedback for you. So they did, sometimes I feel like people would do the bare minimum. Sometimes they would go above and beyond and give you a lot of feedback. It was very varied.
I agree with that 100%. It was kind of like a roll of the dice. I tried to be as thorough as possible in my feedback because that's what I liked. I had a couple of instances where I actually had to resubmit my project because it actually passed, but they failed it because whoever was reviewing it didn't actually read the directions all the way. So I had to resubmit it. I had to reach out to one of the moderators and was like, hey, just to let you know, this is going on. They were like, oh, yeah, let me take a look at that. And they reviewed it. They were like, oh, yeah, you passed. You got exceeds expectations on this, So that happened a couple times. But I'm not going to say that's a horrible experience or anything like that. It happens, right? I mean, I think even on the job, I've been in code reviews where I'm sitting right next to the person. They were like, yeah, this code is not good. And I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, wait, I just reviewed your code. Your code's worse than mine. What you talking about? Literally, we're sitting right here. We just reviewed your code. We talking about you should have no for loops. You got for loops everywhere. What's going on? So I think it's real world, honestly. If you want to be honest, mistakes happen all the time. I know, Don, I know that I'm trying to spin zone here.
Aaron's in sales. He's a sales engineer.
I'm just trying to be as honest, transparent. It's just sometimes it happens.
Okay, Byron, you were shaking your head a lot.
Yeah, I experienced the same thing as Aaron. I had one project where everything was fine, but whoever was reviewing it thought that it wasn't, and they marked me down for something. And I had to reach out to one of the moderators, one of the staff, and they took a look at my code and they said it was okay. And there was another project where it was really weird. It was a React project, and I had done it with hooks. I had done it with like the more modern version of React, and the guy who reviewed it said he did not know how that worked. He was more used to like the classes, and so that reviewer ended up reaching out to someone else to review my project. So just a little FYI. Yeah, so I found that a bit weird. Like I expected that whoever would be reviewing would be really advanced in their knowledge, but it turned out not to be the case, at least for one project.
That's actually a great point. Oftentimes we just don't know, right? Like they didn't really touch on hooks in the tech degree, so I still don't. I worked for them as a mentor code reviewer, and I wouldn't have been able to check your project without first teaching myself how to do it.
So what did they teach?
A lot.
What were some of the major technologies?
React was a big theme. But the whole first part, you're learning like vanilla JavaScript. They don't let you touch the frameworks until later in the tech degree. Node, we didn't really touch on a lot of different frameworks other than React.
Yeah. I specifically remember vanilla JavaScript starting out, and then they went over jQuery, which I'm glad that they did, because the very next, the first job that I got was jQuery stuff. And I was like, nobody uses jQuery. You'd be surprised.
Existing companies use jQuery.
Very surprised what people use. So yeah, the jQuery, Node, of course, and React. But when I went to the program, there was no like hooks. They hadn't came out with any kind of knowledge for hooks yet. So I learned hooks on my own as I was going through it, because it was something that the company that I was at was the developers were using, and they were like, hey, hooks is the future. You should learn hooks. And this is an example of like things you wouldn't know, right? Like you're going through it by yourself. You would not know that you need to learn hooks. And they're like, hey, you need to learn hooks. And I'm like, really? I just know like class stuff. And they're like, bro, you're not going to use classes in the future. No classes in the future, just hooks. And I'm like, okay, great. So I need to learn this hook stuff. And that's the only way that I would have learned that. I mean, I think they have a course now on hooks that they came out with, but I mean,
they also got rid of the third project you had to use jQuery for, and that was no longer the case early 2020. So I think they still have you go through some videos on jQuery, but you don't have to do the third project in jQuery anymore.
Okay, yeah, because when I was there, they made us do it in jQuery. So.
Me too. It changed like right after I finished.
Okay.
Is that pretty much everything?
Sequelize, which is part of Node. I found that was a very useful thing, because I ended up using that in one of the projects that I did later on for work.
And they touch on APIs a lot, which those were always my favorite courses and projects.
Yeah, cool. APIs. And now, Byron, now that you bring that up, Sequelize, and they also, I'm not sure if they do it now, but they went over Pug. So, they went over that templating stuff. So that was useful because, again, like the job that I went to was doing like handlebar stuff. And I was like, nobody uses this. Like, nobody uses this. Yeah, you'd be surprised.
I found a concise list I made for myself on my LinkedIn. So like the main points were JavaScript, Node, React, Express, and SQL. I don't know why I put SQL there. I think because they mention it as one of the main things, but I just had to take a SQL test not too long ago. And I was like, this is a lot. They really just have you learn the basics of SQL, and then you use Sequelize in JavaScript.
Okay. So do they focus more on a relational database like Postgres or MySQL or Mongo?
Relational. I was super interested in Mongo, and I kept being like, where's the video? Where's the video? So I was like trying to learn it off of YouTube.
So I'm going to say I like that, because a lot of coding boot camps lean on Mongo. And I've seen so many coding bootcamp graduates come out with really bad habits. They've never really took the time to figure out like how all their data connects. They just plop it in the database and use it like that. I actually like teaching relational databases first and then like moving to a non-relational database. But, you know, a lot of companies do use Mongo too. So that's something but if they're going to choose one, I would probably lean on a relational database and supplement with Mongo. But it's still, they know their curriculum best. I think, okay, so I have an idea of the JavaScript program. And I think when I reviewed the front end tech track, they had really wished they learned React. Back whenever they went through the program, they didn't teach React and they had to go to the full stack JavaScript just to learn it, which I'm really surprised at that. I would highly recommend they include React into the front end, but you know, kudos to you. I think you got the right stack. Quite frankly, I would have leaned more on the full stack JavaScript stack versus the front end one. But with that said, you had also mentioned about these group projects that came up. Let's talk about that. What was, well, maybe I'll lead off with a question. Do you feel like the group projects were good enough to put on your resume or your portfolio where employers would actually care about them?
So there were no group projects, but every unit has a project that you have to pass before you can pass in your project for the next unit. And they basically, as you go through the tech degree, you're educated at the beginning that like all of these projects are your portfolio. And even one of the projects, they have you make a portfolio. I hated that project. It was ugly. I made my own with Gatsby. Really? But they had you put it all into a portfolio, and then you could add after that as one of the projects. So I think they did a good job setting you up with that, because every project that you had to pass at the end of the unit, you could then have value with and show an employer.
So is every Team Treehouse graduate coming out with a portfolio of the same projects?
If they went through the same tech degree, yes. You're encouraged to put your own spin on it, kind of like after, because if you're trying to follow some sort of timeline, which you can set your own timeline unless you're in like a specific program, you're encouraged to like tweak some things and at least put your own styles on things, but they're very similar.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting. So, you know, I talk a lot about how different portfolio projects have different values. They mean different things to different employers. And so what I try to encourage people to do is get away from these tutorial-based projects that are linked to your education and go out of bounds, create your own thing, you know, solve your own problem, solve a real problem in the world, gain a user base behind it, build something for a client. These are a lot of things you can do to make your portfolio projects more valuable. I almost would love to see Team Treehouse implement it, like maybe like a final project where it sounds like they have a really strict grading scale, but where the grading scale could be a little bit more loose, and just make sure that it's finished, it's functional, there aren't any bugs in the main features. Like, I think that would be a really cool final thing to do for Team Treehouse. But at least you do have a portfolio. So I guess I'm just like thinking out loud of this, but so what do you think of the projects? Do you felt like they were valuable, like they should be in the program, and you're glad you went through them and are able to showcase them?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed doing the projects. I thought that they were good. Each project kind of built on the next. And the strange thing is when I went for jobs and I would show people like my portfolio, the strangest thing would happen. Like the projects that I thought that they were just like really early on projects, you know, employers would be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, you know, you did like this random color generator thing. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, they thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, okay. You know, I thought they were more concerned about the whole full stack application thing. And some were, right? But a lot of them were actually They were like, oh, this is interesting. And I've heard the employers that I've talked to, they're like, you'd be surprised how many people don't have portfolios at all. They don't have any projects. They don't have anything. So it's like, you have something you can show me. Like, I at least know what you can do. And I think a big part of it is like knowing how to speak to it. So what did you learn from this project? What did you do? Because I mean, honestly, you can go through the entire program and you can do all the stuff, but if they ask you like, hey, like, how did you loop over this? Did you use a for loop, or did you use like a map or a reduce, or, what did you do? And then you go, what's a for loop? Right? You kind of lost them, right? So I think as long as you can speak to them, I think you should be fine. But I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the process.
But Aaron, you bring up a good point, because yes, Don, they're going to be similar to other people that went through the full stack tech degree, but compared to a lot of other boot camps, I feel like the projects were pretty unique. Byron, I would love to hear your opinion on this, because you're already a developer. Like, they weren't something that you could go on YouTube and like get a tutorial. Like, you're not doing another task manager, as your project, and everybody on their own will like go and be like, okay, I made a new Asana board, but I did it myself. Like, they were pretty unique, and then they encouraged you to add your own style. And then if you wanted to go take that and build on it, you could, or with all the skills you learned, you could go and make up your own projects as you went.
Yeah. What I liked was they gave you like different tiers for how well you could do on a project. You could do exceeds expectations or just meets. I always tried to do exceeds, because they gave you like little mini challenges for more advanced stuff if you felt like doing it. And yeah, the projects were pretty challenging, I would say, even, with prior experience. There was one which was pagination, which I had never done before, because I was more of a backend developer, and it was pretty hard for me doing pagination. It was my
nightmare. It's so validating to hear that was hard for you, because right. It was project 2, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that was a tough one. And all of them were more unique, I would say, than just stuff you see floating around on YouTube. So yeah, I enjoyed them.
Okay.
Yeah. The one thing I would add to that, I like what you brought up, Byron, because when I was before I started learning to really actually build stuff on my own, going through like Udemy and tutorials and stuff like that, everybody knows you kind of get stuck in this tutorial loop. Like, it's a loop that you just cannot break out of. And I've been there, and it's not great. It's horrible. It's like you go through the tutorial and you try to build something on your own. You're like, what is a loop? What's an array? I don't know. Right? It's like, I know a string, and that's it. Is this a string? I think it is. Oh, no, it's not. It's a char. Like, it's, you're going through that, you don't know. But with this, it really forced you to, with the projects, it forced you to really understand the material. It did. So you go through, the first section, the first unit, and then you have to build this project. And there's no tutorial for you. You just got to build it, right? Like, you just got to do it.
And the later projects, they hold your hand less and less as the projects go on. Yes, and I feel like sometimes towards the end of the projects, I'd love to get both of your opinions on this too, that they would intentionally put things in the project that you had to go outside the curriculum to research yourself to figure out how to do.
Can you give me an example?
I'd say the pagination thing. I mean, to be honest, like, when I went through it, I didn't see anything in there that was like a direct correlation to doing what I needed to do inside that particular project. Like, it was close, but it wasn't the exact thing. So I had to actually go out and like kind of research. I mean, I think even in some other projects, they had you do certain things where you had to go Google stuff.
Definitely. I researched for every single project I did, but I enjoyed them a lot. Like, towards the end, I would get antsy during the video courses, because I'd be like, I just want to work on another project.
Okay. There was one project actually, which was actually a bit frustrating. which was based on the Sequelize part of the entire course. The examples that they provided were actually using a very outdated version of Sequelize, which did not actually run if you installed the latest version of Sequelize.
I remember that.
Yeah, and so I did an npm install Sequelize and started building the project with the code they provided, and it did not work. And I spent hours trying to figure it out, and then I realized, oh, it's the version. I got to downgrade it to, make the sample code work. So, yeah, I guess, I wish they upgraded all of the code. It would definitely make it easier.
Yeah. To be fair, I would say they should definitely do that. The only reason I'm going to defend them with that is because they'd probably have to go through the Sequelize documentation, and that's one of the worst documentations you will ever have to go through. So they probably were avoiding that like the plague. But yeah, that's definitely something they should be aware of. Yeah, I think that's good feedback. Aaron, were you going to add something to that?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Byron. That the Sequelize is pain. Like, even to this day, I'm like, I don't want to use Sequelize at all. Like, it is painful. Like, I think if I ever need to use it, I look at my old projects before I look at the documentation, because I'm like, this documentation is horrible. One of the frustrating things for me was the same thing that Byron talked about, where things weren't quite updated like they were supposed to be, where you had like project requirements that didn't quite make sense. I'll give you an example. So when we were doing the gallery, you had to go to, I forgot which URL it was, but you had to go to an API, but the API didn't actually work all the time, but they didn't actually tell you that. So like, we're in chat and we're like, what API are we supposed to be using to get these random images so we can search? Because this API doesn't work. And they're like, well, let's just try and see if it continues to like not function. I was like, bro, it's not working. Like, we need something else. And they have been
one of the staff though actually made his own, because that kept failing so much that he just made a backup one for people to be able to use.
I just found one online. I was like, I was just going to find a free one. That's all I did. And I put that in the notes. I was like, hey, this is failing. I found a free one. Like, deal with it. That's it. Yeah.
But also, I have worked at a lot of companies with that. My last company was entirely based off other people's APIs. Real world problems right there. All the time. It's not us, it's them.
I like it. So I feel like we've touched on everything that I want to touch on, at least all the pieces that it provides. I think for the projects, the one piece of feedback that it doesn't seem very controversial to say is start replacing these projects with your own. I think these projects are really good to reinforce what you just learned, because it sounds like there's a project for each component. But then and you're probably going to be more competitive. You'd be surprised when you actually go out to searching for an actual developer position. You don't even know some of the developers that are actually applying for this position. If you completed like a tech degree of Team Treehouse, you are far above a lot of other developers that are applying for that same position. So it's very scary to see hundreds of developers applied for this junior position. How am I going to get it? How am I going to stand out? It's like, I'm guessing like a good 100 probably got tossed out, because they didn't even have any projects or anything to show. So that is encouraging, but I would highly recommend that you start solving real problems, even if it's your own problem, even if you have to think, how can I create a technical solution for this problem that exists in my life? You are the best user. A lot of startups are built and become successful because they solve their own problems. And that's one of the, a really interesting thing just to be able to know. So work on your own projects and supplement. But like you said, even after a coding boot camp, that does get you closer to job ready. You're still building projects. You don't just stop and then just apply for positions. You're still learning. You're still practicing. And, so maybe that's a good follow-up, since it sounds like Team Treehouse, you had mentioned, doesn't really have that career success. We're going to pull you to the finish line module at the very end, maybe that's a good next step where you start applying for positions. But with that said, I think we touched on everything I want to touch on. Do you have any constructive criticism for Team Treehouse? What could they do better? If you could think of like one more thing.
So I feel like Aaron and Byron touched on this a little bit, but I definitely had a huge gap with a real application. I still feel like I don't understand how things connect. They really set you up at the end, even though the projects were a lot harder. They kind of already did a lot of base configuration for sessioning, for people logging in. And I was like, no, I want to learn that. Like, that's entirely what, like, if I'm going to go work for a software company, a SaaS company, I need to know this stuff. And I guess it's kind of like, oh, you'll learn it on the job. But I was like, if I went to go make my own program right now, I probably could get there. But I feel like I would need to fill in all these gaps for how things are interconnected. Because, and I think Byron said this earlier, it's like great foundation here, great foundation here, great foundation, but like, how do they interconnect? And I think those group projects, I was really looking forward to that group project that we didn't get to do, because you're not coding in a black box, right? You're going to be working with people every day and collaborating on things and reviewing each other's code, which we got to do in the peer reviews, but it was very like, this is the only person that touched that code. And then one other person's reviewing it. So I definitely felt like I would like to understand the whole a bit better of an actual software application, and would have liked to worked together to create something or troubleshoot something with a couple of small groups of people.
I think that's really good feedback. And one piece of feedback just to add to that, if you're wondering what to do besides like to add to your basic CRUD app, authentication is really good to start with. Like what do you even choose to build the authentication with? Are you going to use sessions? Are you going to use tokens? I wouldn't recommend this right away, but maybe you dive into OAuth and figure out that process. I remember bringing on someone a while back that said he would hire someone he would hire a junior software engineer if they had OAuth implemented in their application. And he warned people, he's like, I'm going to ask like where you think you screwed up. That's going to be my first question, because everyone screws up OAuth, but I want you to talk about that with me. But authentication is a tricky thing. And if you're looking for something besides just a basic CRUD app, that's one thing to add to your application. That's
really interesting. I want to add one last thing is that reminded me, because this was like over a year ago now. I was really frustrated with one of the last projects, because as I was researching, I was like, this can't be right. They basically wanted me to store the user's password in the cookie. And I was like, this isn't secure. I was like, what are we doing? And then I kept thinking it was a problem. And then everybody in the Slack was like, no, this is just how we do it. They didn't want to like get into. And I was like, so this doesn't help me at all. I didn't feel like I completely understood authorization. I felt like I was just plugging in things to like put together the last project to actually have people sign in. And I got to work, but like a lot of the base code was done for me. So like I couldn't replicate it from scratch. And I feel like that's the only time that I really didn't have the base knowledge for. And they probably did, because like it will probably take more units to actually go through that. And they already have quite a lot of units in there. But I'm wondering what other people's opinions on that are.
Don't they have a module for authentication in their courses?
Yeah, they do.
Like understanding the basic concepts, but then they would give you a lot of the base code, and then you would like have to plug in certain things.
Okay, it's good feedback.
Yeah, I think they probably need to make it a bit longer. Honestly, like some of the stuff is just it's not quite there. Like it's a good foundation, right? Good basics, good foundation, but it's not quite there. Like you got to supplement with some other stuff. So even for like all the authentication stuff, I think the authentication stuff is good. They walk you through some good stuff. But like Megan said, like they give you the code, which I think is helpful for some people, but other people kind of want to jump in there and figure it out and write the code for themselves, stuff like that. But I do think it should be longer. I do believe that there are some courses, like if you go through the actual JavaScript track, the JavaScript track is actually a little bit longer than the actual tech degree, which is interesting. There are some courses that you don't get in a tech degree, which I thought was very odd. I was like, wait. So when I was actually going through stuff, what I used to do, because you could only, you had a certain time limit that you could complete a project by, and you couldn't move on to the next section for like a week or something like that. So what I would do is I finished something early. I just jump in and take a look at the rest of the stuff, the JavaScript stuff they had. And I was amazed by the stuff that they had in there. I was like, wait, how come this is not in the program? Like, how come this is not in the tech degree? That's weird. Like, why is this not here? Like, this should be here. Like, all this stuff should be here. So I think that's something that they kind of missed out on. Like, any new thing they bring out, they need to just put it in the tech degree. I mean, you're paying for it.
Okay, but you're paying for it, but you also, I can answer that question right there. As a person trying to sell a boot camp that is these people are setting their own schedules, and you can pause whether you pay a month or not. Some people never come back. So you don't want to put so many things in there that you scare people away. But yes, I feel like this one could be rebranded as like intro to full stack. And then they could make like another level that gets deep dives into actual applications that are put together, putting them together, troubleshooting them, stuff like that. But yeah, like some really great points there.
I like that.
Yeah, I'd say they would, if they focused more at the very end on actually deploying your applications on like an actual server, I think that would be very useful, because that's not something they currently do. Everything you have is running on your local machine in a test environment, which is great. But if you get hired and your employer asks you, okay, I want to deploy it, you have no idea how to do that. And then you end up going on YouTube or looking at other tutorials just for that information. So including that would definitely be great.
Even something free like Heroku. That's what a lot of coding boot camps do. I agree with that. Okay. All really good feedback. I like it. So, oh yeah, go for it.
So this is another thing that they left out. So Byron, they actually do. They actually did add a course on deploying your application, but it's not in the tech degree. I don't know why. That's another thing.
But also, you can't deploy with the database that they have you use I still have an action item for myself to change the database to Postgres or something, because the database that they had us use, you can't deploy that. So you'd have to rewrite a certain part of your project.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you start getting into migrations you can use different things to build out your database schema. That is a more advanced topic. And I don't ever see Team Treehouse really talking about deployment and talking about like managing a production application. And, a lot of people with their production applications, they just say they wipe everything, replace it. Here's my new app, and you can't really do that in the real world. So I don't, like Team Treehouse advertises as a beginner program. You hear that very often. I don't know if they should make it more advanced. Just don't try to sell the program as getting everyone job ready. And that's like the big message I have. So just make a choice and advertise it appropriately. I'm not saying they're lying, because I actually haven't seen any of their advertisements, but I do not see them saying it's like a beginner course and a foundational course. It's a full stack course. And I think you have to be a little bit more transparent about something like that. All really good feedback, though. So I think this is a good spot to end with the program feedback. What I like to do before we end the episode is, what's one final piece of advice you would have for aspiring developers?
I would say for anybody looking for a job right now, especially in this crazy world, treat your job applications like a sales pipeline. It's really hard to not get stuck and be like, oh, I really want this position, and I'm not going to apply to any other positions, because you like kind of feel loyal almost to that company that you haven't started working at yet. Even if you are in the late stages of applying to a job, always keep looking for more. I used to keep a spreadsheet, and I used to share it with other people in my cohort to like keep their hopes up. be like, look, guys, I applied to 50 positions. 2 people have answered me. Just, it's kind of a numbers game, and you really want to just pay attention to what they're looking for. Apply anyways. They're going to ask for the moon. They're going to ask for a front end developer, a back end developer, and like DevOps all in one. Like, I don't care. Just apply. And just really treat it like a cold sales pipeline.
That's really good advice. And I want to share something. This video is going to get released later. And I want everyone to stay on for just a couple minutes after we do end the podcast. I'm going to share a couple things with you. But someone shared in our Discord that, they made it to like the final stage of the interview process. And they asked a question, how long do I need to wait? And my question to them was, what are you waiting for? And like, I think I worded it like that. But they're like, well, I'm waiting to hear back. It's like, and I talked to them a bit, but it's like, no. What's the action that you're waiting for that you need to do? Where are you getting stuck here? Because you're not getting stuck. You're, like you said, Megan, I did this a lot. I got emotionally invested in the company, and I was really excited, and like it played with my emotions, and I would slow down because I'm like, they're probably going to hire me. And, I learned that didn't happen with a couple companies, even though I made it a little bit further. And you have to just, like you said, sometimes you have to be cold about the job application process. And I think over time, you kind of harden up a little bit. You get comfortable with it. But in the beginning, it's a really hard thing to do because you're so excited to make such a big change at a company. And, it's a really important point to illustrate. Now, I'm not making fun of this person that asked that because I asked that. I just wanted, to show them a different mindset to have that's going to get them all the way there.
This is why I'm saying it, because I used to be that person, and it's still hard for me not to be. I get very invested. If I see a cultural fit at a company, I'm like, that's it. That's like my relationship right there. I'm like going after that. So I'm doing it because I've had to learn the hard way over many years to like protect myself. Because at the end of the day, they're a company and they're going to do what's best for them. And they're not necessarily going to take you into consideration.
It's good advice.
I think I really like that advice because it's very easy, especially when you're new, to kind of put your heart on your sleeve and be like, yeah, like this is the job for me. Like no other job is gonna satisfy. Especially if this is maybe your first couple jobs and you actually get farther along in the process. You're like, oh, I got this job. Like I got it. Like there's nobody else that's like better than me. And while the confidence is great. Keep the confidence because you're not gonna have it very, very long. Keep the confidence, right? You don't want to let up off the gas, right? You just keep on the gas, right? Because where you want to be is you want to be at the stage where you have multiple offers. That's where you want to be, right? You want to be picking between offers, not like waiting to hear back from feedback from different companies, right? So you never let up off the gas until like you have offers in hand and you're deciding which one you want to go with, right? I mean, that's the thing. But I think one piece of advice that I would give to new developers, and I saw this recently, coding is hard. Coding is not easy. And anybody who tells you that coding is easy, you need to run far away from them. Run as fast as you can, whether it's a boot camp, a person, whoever tells you that, oh yeah, coding is easy. You can just like learn this in like 2 months and you'll have a job and you'll be good. Do not let them lie to you. Coding is a black box for 98% of the population. It is. I mean, it is what it is. And that 2% that actually knows stuff, within that 2%, most of those people, they're not at the 1% level. It takes a long time to get there. It just does. Coding is hard for everybody. Like coding's hard for everybody. So especially if you're new starting out, don't let anybody try to tell you that it's easy. It is not. It is hard. Some parts get a little bit easier. However, you will still be Googling the same things over and over again. And you'll be like, yeah, I forgot. How do I get a date in JavaScript again? How do I get this? And, most important thing is to know how to find things, right? How to research, how to learn. That's the thing that you have to know. And I think when it comes down to like boot camps, whether you go to college or whether you go to Treehouse or whatever it is, the most important skill that you can get out of anything is, can I learn quickly? And can I continue to learn? Because no matter whether you're finding a job or doing anything like that, you should never let your foot off the gas, because technology continues to move extremely fast. Never let your foot off the gas. Continue to learn, continue to just soak in knowledge, continue to ask questions, be inquisitive, be curious. But coding is hard. Yes.
I like it. In your bit about just confidence, that's a really important piece of it. You kind of joked around with your confidence about to be struck down, but like, you can, if we're being serious about it, you can form real confidence in the job search process by continuing to, like you said, not let your foot off the gas, having another interview lined up in the week. Like, you're going to feel when you have just like a single interview that you've gotten all month, after like last month you got no interviews, you're very emotionally invested in that interview. You're not going to come off as your best version of yourself. The best version of yourself is confident. It's just being confident. Confidence is such an important key in just going into an interview and feeling comfortable, doing some strange whiteboard problem. You might hate whiteboards, but hey, this is fun. I'm going to try this interview. We'll see how this interview goes, and we'll go to the next one. And when you don't let your foot off the gas, you can put yourself in that position of lining yourself up with many interviews. And every single interview, you're going to sell yourself a lot better when you come in. Now, you shouldn't come in with an attitude like, I don't care about you guys, I got like 5 other interviews. But like, you can at least come in like, if I screw up, I can learn from it. This is going to be fun. Let's meet someone new, probably maybe make a LinkedIn connection, even if I don't get hired. But yeah, not letting your foot off the gas that's what's going to instill that confidence in you in the job search process.
And Don, I'd also like to just comment on, I feel like sometimes confident has the connotation that you're like cocky. It's more like be real, be yourself. A lot of people appreciate if you mess up, and then especially because developers, we're all troubleshooting. All we're doing is solving problems at a really high level with certain technologies, right? So if you mess up, that's a great opportunity to show them how you can figure something out, or how you can use your resources, being the person that's interviewing you, to help figure something out. Like, a lot of these things are set up so that you need to ask for help, and they want to see you ask for help. They want to see how you understand new concepts that they explain to you. So it's not necessarily about being like, yeah, I'm the best. Like, know your worth. Definitely. Like, you're human, they're human. Like, even though the power dynamics are messed up, it's really just be a real human and do the best you can. And if it didn't work out, you have more interviews lined up.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. How about you, Byron?
Yeah, I like Aaron and Megan's advice about, Aaron touched on always trying to learn more, which I agree with. And you also spoke about, building your own projects. I think that's very, very important. Whatever you've learned through whatever bootcamp you take, whether it's Treehouse or something else, try to take all of those concepts and ideas and apply them to something you're passionate about, and build that. And I think that helps not only tie it for you, bring all of those concepts together, but it's also something great to showcase to employers and show them something you're passionate about. And then I would also say for new developers or, developers who are searching for a job, really focus on like algorithms, because they come up a lot in job interviews. And especially with like something like Treehouse, you're not ready for like high level algorithmic problems or stuff like that. So focus on that.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to supplement. I'm glad you brought that up. Excellent. All right. I think this is good advice. I think we're ready for our outros. Aaron, if people wanted to reach out to you, where could they reach you?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, AB Develops. I also write a ton of articles on Medium, ASBilling07 at Medium. And I finished my Chrome extension. So it is on the Chrome store. So you can check it out. It's called Getter. So if you need to find out any kind of colors on a website, or want to get images, stuff like that, it's there.
Okay. And as all of you know, I'm terrible with YouTube. I'm going to do my best to attach a card to the previous conversation Aaron and I had. Yeah, that was a kind of a cool story of how Getter got formed. How about you, Byron?
You can reach me on LinkedIn, and you can also sign up for my to-do app called To Do Plus, which is a personal project that I worked on. And it's a great tool for managing your time and also managing your to-do list for like students or your work or whatever.
I love it. Cool. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, you can also find me on LinkedIn /Megan KOB. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Well, if you like this episode, if you want to, because I think a lot of people, and one thing I notice is like my self-taught videos and audio podcasts, a lot of people like them. I didn't think it would get so much traction, but I think you want to hear more. So if you do, let me know. We can go over free programs that are popping up. Even I'll go into like cheaper paid programs where you don't have to pay all this money that you would for a coding bootcamp. Like I'll dive into, whatever is going to help everyone. So let me know in the comments below. Reach out to me. You can even go to DonTheDeveloper.tv and go to the contact page. Let me know there as well. But keep letting the feedback flow. But Aaron, Byron, Megan, thanks so much for hopping on. This is a pleasure. It's great to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
Just see everything we believe. We just see